Are you going to start? There. Oh. All right. Good morning. Today I am here to talk to you about neglect. Neglect is when parents or caregivers are less supportive and playful and responsive with their child. According to a 2003 report by Barry, Charlson, and Dawson, neglect is the most common form of maltreatment. Although abuse and neglect occurs in families of all classes, all income levels, and all ethnicities, can't talk very well this morning, we find that families that are poverty stricken or single parent households or families that have very few social network connections or anything like that tend to be higher rates of neglect than any others. But do remember, just because of that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be neglectful. As I said, it can be all classes, all walks of life. You know, you'd be surprised at some of the people that can be neglectful. Martin reminds us that you do not have to be a child expert to make a difference in a child's life. Just simply positive statements to this child you see every day, or, you know, trying to help boost their confidence a little bit by telling them how nice they look or what a great job they did at something, can really get them at the beginning of making a more positive impact on their life, to where the effects aren't, I don't want to say as bad, but it will help the child in the end. Studies have shown mothers with mental health affects a child's behavior. So we find mothers who are using drugs or have been neglected themselves or abused themselves are more likely to treat their children in the same manner that they were treated. I know of a lot of abuse victims I have talked to that swore they were never going to put their children through what they went through. They weren't going to do this to their child. And a lot of times they would catch themselves starting to do some of the same actions because that's what they had grown up with. That's all they really knew. And even though they knew it was wrong, it was still embedded in their core, and they had never actually learned the proper way to handle it. Signs of neglected children are poor growth development. That means they might seem more baby-like, you know, not use words quite as well, maybe not, you know, be able to perform like coloring or cutting or anything like that, as well as some of the other children. A failure to thrive, which means they have difficulty learning. It may take them twice as long to learn a project or technique or something that the other children pick up, you know, pretty quickly. Another thing is consistent hunger. They may be hungry all the time. Poor hygiene. They may not look like they bathe or clean up as often as they should. Constant fatigue is one that I've seen a lot. The kids just seem to be tired all the time, and sometimes that's because the parents don't care. They let them stay up as late as they'd like or do whatever they want. They don't really monitor them in any way, shape, or form. Another thing is like bald patches on their hair, on their scalp, or other skin inflictions. Sometimes neglected children will tend to pick and pull, you know, and you'll see these little sores or patches where they pulled their hair out just from the frustration, because as children they don't know how to handle this or how to deal with certain situations. Another thing is apathy, a child showing, you know, just no energy, no excitement. They're just kind of there. And the last one would be inappropriate dress for the weather. A lot of kids you may see, I there have been kids that I used to babysit for that their parents would show up in shorts and stuff, and there'd be snow on the ground, and I'm like, you know, I started buying extra clothes just to make sure I had them. Another thing that we have figured out is child abuse and neglect can physically and psychologically slow down the development in children. You may see children having more difficulty in focusing. Some even suffer from ADD or ADHD. And a lot of times this is due to the mother's stress in her life, and she just tends to ignore the child. Um, but it is very important that once you do start to get the child the resources they need, that you make sure that you get them as soon as possible, because it helps the child begin to unlearn the negative beliefs that they have learned and the dynamics of their lives, so they're less likely to repeat this with their own children. I mean, the younger you catch a child, the less damage that's been done, and I don't want to say easy because it's not an easy road for a neglected child, but it's an easier road than if they had been going through this for a longer period. So the younger they are and the faster you get them the resources, the better off the child will be in the end. And you've got to make sure that they have a resource to know how to handle these situations, themselves, so when they become adults and parents, they don't continue the vicious cycle of neglect or abuse. But I'd like to say thank you for listening, and I hope you have learned something from it.